What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I'm finally ready to give my full review on Stellar Blade. I just beat it last night, pretty late last night, and I really do love this game. I think this game gets better the longer you play it, and, I did a video after 10 hours in. I think I did that on the weekend. I'm going to try to avoid not just saying the exact same thing, so if you want to watch kind of my early impressions, there's that. I would agree with everything I said, right? Really, my opinion hasn't changed much. I would like to kind of add on to it. The combat in this game, let's start with the combat. It is so good. It is so unbelievably good. Once you get the beta skills, once you get the burst skills, I mean, this game is just unreal. Honestly, it has a complexity level to it without being overkill to me. And, I've talked about the FromSoft games. I still don't think this game is as hard as some of them, but to be honest with you, some of the late bosses in this game, and there's probably, I'm thinking 4 to 5, but especially the last 3, oh my dear God, I died countless times. Actually, not countless because I recorded the whole thing. I probably died 20 plus times on the final 3 bosses, and some more than others. Some probably 40 times, maybe some like 21 or 22. But you know what? It never made me feel like I wanted to give up. I definitely felt mad. I was raging a little bit in my chair over here, but I kept feeling the game is giving me the tools. And that's the important thing when it comes to me with these games. If you feel like you got it, if you feel like the game is giving you what you need, and it's just kind of a skill problem, you just have to elevate yourself, and then you do. And then you feel really good when you beat those bosses. And I'm spending so much time talking about it because, to be honest with you, number one, the number one thing with this game that I think is its highest quality is the combat. And especially as you keep playing through the game, we talked about the side content. We talked about, going around the world. It's really good. Exploration in this game is awesome. It makes you want to explore. The areas are diverse, and they're diverse enough where you feel like, okay, there's always something to give if you go left instead of going right. The sense of discovery, whether it's like, okay, let's be real. Finding costumes is like a high. You feel really good when you find costumes. At least I do. Maybe not. I don't speak for everybody. But whenever I found that small little crate, right, because the small crates are the costumes and the bigger crates are materials. So whenever you find the small crates, you feel like a rush of adrenaline where it's like, okay, what costume am I going to get? But honestly, like, it was always so cool to find stuff. And, I mentioned in that impressions video, some of the side missions could lead to boss fights that would be pretty unique and pretty fun. And at the time I was doing some of these side quests, the bosses were harder than the main quest bosses. So it felt like an extra challenge, and you get a lot of rewards. That's another thing I think this game very much excels at, is not just costumes. It's always giving you costumes. It's always giving you materials, but it's not confusing enough to mess it all up, like to ruin it, right? You're constantly getting things. You're constantly getting SP so that you can level yourself up and feel even stronger. Something that I talked a little bit about, but I really kind of want to expand upon it, at least just a little here. The kind of behind the scenes like character set that you can do is something I really don't see people talk about. And what I mean by that is like the exospine and the gear. Like, there is actually a stunning amount of strategy, and I actually had to change my strategy to, I guess, complement my playstyle. I mentioned these bosses that kind of kicked my butt towards the end. One of them, I couldn't do it. And I was like, there's got to be something I'm doing wrong, right? And I didn't want to look up guides. I looked up nothing in this entire game. Looked up absolutely nothing. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I can change my gear, because the gear can maybe give you a buff in this department versus this thing, and maybe that would suit my play style. And I'm not actually joking. I changed it, and I did feel different. And the new gear set is actually the one that I kept for those final 3 bosses, and it worked. And that's just a small example, right? You can kind of customize that. There's a lot of gear, and the gear will do a little something different, and your spine will do a little something different, and you can actually upgrade that part, right? So there's these levels to the combat, whether it's strategy or whatever, that I really appreciated. I thought was just really fun. I can't stress enough just how fun the combat is. I don't want to give away the bosses. In fact, I don't even want to spoil to show you guys those final 3 bosses, but let's just say this. The reliance on perfect parrying and perfect dodging is extreme, very extreme towards the end. And enemies strike fast, and they strike ferociously. So there's just, and I would say, like, in the entire game, whenever you perfect parry, whenever you perfect dodge, it just feels good. Again, like kind of that adrenaline rush where it looks nice, it feels nice, everything kind of just works in terms of the combat. And when you're firing off, like the second to last boss in this game is very quick, and it's a lot of deflections, like bam, 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 bam. And when you're nailing them, you feel so freaking good. So again, I just really want to circle around that. And I will be real, because there is other parts to this that are not as good. It's, we talked about the user scores and all that stuff. I love this game. I think this game is one of my favorite games of the year. And I think it is that because the enemy design, the bosses, the combat, but it's not because of some other things, although I will change my opinion a little bit off of the impressions video I did. Eve as a character, I actually do think gets better. I think the game actually does some kind of weird stuff with the story and the characters, and what I mean by this, they're really not impactful, and I would stick with that for 85% of the game. There's a couple moments, yes. There's a couple moments, and there's actually a couple side quests that are pretty good, but I'm not going to sit here and fool with you guys or lie and say, oh yeah, I mean, these are the most in-depth side quests of all time. They're not. They're primarily kind of fetch-like quests. You go to an area, you kill something, you go to an area, you find something, you bring it back, right? Simple. And in some ways, as we've talked about previously, I don't really mind that. And some of them can get more in-depth, and I actually do like it, right? But I'm not going to sit here and tell you this is the most in-depth side stuff in any game. It's absolutely not. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Eve is a great character. I think they did some cool stuff with her towards the end. The last 3 hours, maybe, they really started to actually push stuff. They pushed stuff with Adam. They pushed stuff with Lily. So I actually do think the cast was, like, fine. And I think fine is probably the right word. I wouldn't say they're good. I don't know. Like, I'm trying to think, okay, what am I going to say about Eve, Adam, Lily, the side characters, the main characters? What am I going to be saying about them in a few months? And to be honest with you, the answer is probably very little. You know what I mean? That's why I'm trying to stress what is really good about this game and then just what's so-so. Now, I'm willing to give it to them in the fact that this is their first game like this. Now, look, you still have to provide quality content, and I think that's what they did. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that these characters are Game of the Year, like they're the best characters I've experienced in the game. Far from it. There's not enough to them. I don't know if I would say they are bad, but there's not enough to them that makes them special. Like I said previously, though, the acting is better. I played the entire thing in Korean. I think the voice acting was much, much better. Yes, you have to read it, of course, or like there is some, I guess there's some offsets to it, but I really felt more energy, more oomph, right? I really did feel that. And not even just, I mentioned Lily before. Lily definitely has the most, like, spunk, but Eve can have it actually sometimes too. Adam really never has it, but Eve does at times, not all the time. So that's something I wanted to throw in there. The story is interesting. Like, okay, here's the thing with the story. I think the concept is good, and I think it is an interesting concept just in general. Again, there's moments, and I will say, probably not even the last 2-3 hours, maybe the last like 5 or so hours, it does pick up. There's times where they will just dump it on you, though, and that's something that, you know what I mean? Like, what you find as you play this game all the way through, it's heavily dependent on finding like 5,000 freaking notes throughout the world, right? And I was reading most of them as I was going, but eventually I just kind of pieced out of it because they generally are doing the same kind of thing. They're painting a narrative or a picture of like what happened to the world, what happened to the people, these different factions, etc., etc. So it does, again, like the concept is there. The concept is there. I think they go too hard on the way of learning. Most of it is by just reading constant, like, and I joke, I guess, hundreds, because I got the trophy, I think, for like 200 or 300, whatever it is, like finding papers in the world. I mean, I must have read like 300+ of these, little notes, and it's eventually it's like, okay, these are not like meaningful, right? These don't really have any kind of impact. Then the main story, again, there's moments, and it does pick up in the last little, bit of the game, maybe the last quarter of the game, but it also is kind of dependent on standing there and letting a character just tell it all to you. And that actually happens, I'm trying to think just off the top of my head, some of it's spoiler, so I'm not going to, there's a couple characters that will come in and then just dump something on you in a good it is actually short, I will say that. It's maybe 3 to 4 minutes of just, let's dump a huge plot point, or here's what happened in the past, or here's how this race started, or that, right? Like, that's what they'll do. And it's like, okay, there's probably worse worse ways. There's also probably better ways. And I also would have preferred that they didn't take so long, because the game, for the most part, is just the combat. It's just, again, that sense of exploration and discovery, which is absolutely there, even in the beginning. But it takes them a very long time to get going when it comes to the story, and then it's a little too late, by the time it happens. So, again, there's weak points, but I think that's why I stress, like, it's one of my favorite games of the year, or I love it. I think you can love something, or I think you can say something is your favorite or one of your favorites without it being perfect. Does that make sense? Like, this is not, by any stretch, a perfect video game. Now, you could argue no game is perfect, but this isn't also, like, in the top tier of quality across the board. We're not talking about a sweep of amazing combat, amazing discovery, amazing characters, going down the list. It doesn't have all of that. It is propped up by some of its better elements. But you know what? It still has those. Like, I don't want to take away from them because it doesn't deserve that, right? This game is actually kind of something special. And I want to end with this because I really did call it, and I kind of just want to, like, put my stamp on it, to end this video. I said countless times that although the Eve thing and the looks and all that, and they are cool and they are good to look at, okay? But at the end of the day, and I said this for months, you're going to be talking about the combat. People are going to be talking about the combat when this is all said and done. That is, without a doubt, the best thing in this game. And I'm also going to add on to that right now by saying it is far better than I thought it would be. I thought it would be really good. This is like elite level to me. I absolutely loved it. So I am sitting here kind of ready to New Game Plus this thing. I want to platinum it. I put in like 28 hours or so. Like this was not a 15-hour thing. It also wasn't a 60-hour thing. I didn't find everything. I did most of this game. The only thing I really didn't do was the bottle cans. I got only 11 of them because I suck at finding things. But I actually did find I think I got 24 suits. I did all but maybe 3 side missions in the entire game. So I feel like I did like 90% of this game. It was just the bottles that I didn't finish. So, it's a meaty game, but it's not a game that you need to sacrifice the next 2 months to. And I appreciate that too. Not every game needs to be 100 hours. Not every game needs to be 5 hours, but this game, a 15, 20, 25-hour thing, I think that was a perfect range for it. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.